we have our landing page. So when users click the ad, they're being directed directly to the city-style landing page. So the most important and critical part of analyzing and optimizing is do not wait until the campaign is over. Far too often we see current and existing and potential clients that are doing online marketing efforts, but what they do is they set it and forget it. And it probably comes from the traditional way of buying media, where you would buy a print ad or a billboard or a radio or TV spot, and traditionally kind of just throw money at it and leave it in its place. You wouldn't optimize it because you can't at the end of the day. And you really hope for the best. On top of that, it's critical to not wait until the campaign is over, because if you think about all the resources that you're investing into this, on top of money, there's time, there's energy, there's meetings. So you really want to stay on top of this. You don't want to wait till the campaign's over to realize that there's an issue or that there was opportunity that you ended up missing. So whether it's your ad platforms that you buy your ads through, and you'll probably recognize some of these. Google AdWords is probably the largest that some of you may use, or you may have vendor partnerships with these individual companies, or it's Google Analytics or Omniture, whatever your analytics platform is, or it's your social media, and even your email marketing. So nowadays, everything is in real time. So you have actionable data, you can log in at any time and get up-to-the-minute metrics on all of this stuff. So at this point, there's really no excuses for you to not know what's going on inside your campaign. So what does this mean for Tillman Street? So when you optimize a campaign, you really want to optimize for your initial objectives, so your KPIs. Everything needs to tie back to that. So in the case of Tillman Street, as Brett touched on, we really need to get in front of female demographic, 20 to 40 years old, fashion forward, health conscious. That's kind of our demographic, that's our target. That's who we want to get in front of. So every optimization that we do, and we're going to walk through a few examples, is going to tie directly back to our initial KPIs. So because we're following the golden rule and we're not waiting until the last minute or until after the campaign is over to start optimizing and taking a look at things, we're logging into our platforms. This usually happens within 24 hours of launch. So right away, as soon as you get some traction, you want to log into your platforms, no matter what the segment is. So if it's email, log into your email platform. If it's analytics, if it's your ad platform, so Google AdWords, once again, is probably one of the larger ones. So because we're being proactive, within 24 hours, the campaign's live, we log into our ad platform and we see something that looks like this. So this is a scaled down report just to give you guys an idea of something we might take a look at. And right away, something that jumps out at us is the fact that we have 7 conversions from our retargeting segment, but we have 0 from our contextual. And on the flip side, we have more daily budget allocated towards the contextual, and therefore we're spending more. So we're spending more on contextual and getting less. So right there is kind of a red flag, and that's an opportunity to optimize it. So something we would do to optimize this is, you can see here, we just simply switch the budget. So you'll notice as we go through some of these examples, they are minor tweaks, but they're going to have a really good impact on the campaign performance. So we switched it, retargeting is now 100, contextual is now 50. And what that did is we accomplished 3 things. So not only did we slow our spending on the underperforming segment, which was contextual, we increased our spending on the best performing segment and then therefore increased conversions. And this would be an example of a budget optimization. So the campaign's been live. We kind of already took a look at the front end of things where the ads are delivering. Now let's log into analytics and see what the traffic is doing behind the scenes. So we log into analytics, once again being very proactive. We're not waiting for anything. We're checking on this. And we see a couple things here. So some things that stick out. New sessions, you'll notice contextual is driving 99% new sessions. So 99% of the traffic that is coming from the contextual segment of the campaign are new users, which hits our objective of brand awareness. So we're driving that combined with our targeted placements. We're driving new users from our target demo to the website, which is ultimately brand awareness. However, there are some negatives and some opportunities for optimization. You'll see we have a fairly high bounce rate. The pages per session is fairly low. Session duration, and then conversions. So when people are going to the website, they're not sticking around for a long time. They're hitting and leaving right away. So even though we are generating a bunch of new users, which is a positive, on the flip side, those new users really aren't hanging around. And they're really not You want people to stay on your website because the longer they interact with your brand, the longer they stay on your website, the more likely they are to go through that funnel from a suspect or a potential client all the way to a customer and then a brand advocate. So we want to keep them on the website. So we need to take a step back. We need to look at, well, what's going on? Why aren't they sticking on the website? And this brings us to a content and creative optimization. So we went over budget. This one will be content and creative based. So right now, as Wayne presented, these are the ads that we're running. They're great ads, they're nice, they're clean, they have strong call to actions, and they're working, which is evidenced by the large volume of new users that we're getting to the site. So people are clicking, they're interacting with the ads, so they are resonating pretty well. However, this, if you remember, is our landing page. And what you notice about this, very evident, is these two things don't line up. So when someone takes the time out of their internet experience to click on an ad, they want that user experience to kind of be streamlined and consistent. If you click an ad, you expect to see a certain thing. You clicked it for a reason. You engage with the brand for a reason. If you go to a landing page that doesn't represent what you clicked on, that's going to deter you from going any further. So what we did was swap it out with a relevant landing page that matched up with the ad creative. So when someone clicks the ad, they end up at a consistent user experience, and it matches up with what they set out to do by clicking the ad in the first place. And because of that, we log back into the analytics platform, and you could see that that minor tweak was successful. Our bounce rate dropped, our pages per session dropped or increased, our session duration increased, and then ultimately conversions increased. So just by changing the landing page and changing the user experience slightly and investing the time and energy to do that, we're able to achieve all of these great results. So the next example we're going to go over, we're back in the ad platform. So you'll notice you jump around a lot, and that's kind of what we find ourselves doing internally. Usually on a daily basis, we'll be in any host of platforms. So we're back in the ad platform. So we took a look at the front end, which is your ad delivery, what's happening with the ads. We took a look at the back end with analytics, so what's going on behind the scenes. What are people who click the ads and see the ads, what are they doing? Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So we're back in our ad platform, and a majority of ad delivery platforms gives you deep dive insight as to where your ads are running, where you're winning your impressions, and how much it's costing you. So you might get something that looks like this. So we see right away that our ads are on cosmopolitan.com, Women's Health Mag, Vogue, and entrepreneur.com. And we can see the amount of impressions that we're winning on each site, and then how much we're spending on each site, the conversions, and then the last metric is important because it's impressions per conversion. So you'll notice that it's basically how many ads do we have to show to our target to get them to convert. And you'll see most of them are within the 3,000 to 6,000 impression per conversion range, which is a pretty healthy range. However, the one segment, Vogue.com, isn't performing as well. We're spending a decent amount of money there. We are seeing a lot of impressions, so we do have a nice presence on Vogue. However, it's just not converting. You can see it's taking almost 21,500 impressions for someone to actually become a customer. So one way to combat that is to completely eliminate that segment. So we tried it. We used the low-risk experiment. We thought Vogue might be a good target, but we learned from this and we say, okay, Vogue isn't working out. Let's turn this off. Let's stop running our ads on Vogue. So we eliminated Vogue from our mix. And what that did was we checked a short time later and we saw an increase in conversions because of that. So we removed the underperforming site placement, which frees up budget for the better performing site placements, and then ultimately it increases your conversions because you're spending that money properly. Once again, this all ties back to kind of the beauty of digital. We're seeing this stuff in real time. We're making real-time actionable decisions based off of this data. So another opportunity, which I'm sure many of you probably are involved with at this point, Facebook advertising or social advertising in general. There's a wealth of targets there. You can get pretty granular with your targeting depending on what your objective is. So here we have a screenshot of what our Facebook ad traffic is doing. And as you can see, pretty much everything across the board looks good. So when people show up, it's mostly new users, which hits our brand awareness objective. The bounce rate is extremely low. The pages per session is high, and the session duration is high. this tells me that the Facebook traffic is quality. So the targets are working, it's resonating, people are coming to the site, they're spending a lot of time on the site, and they're consuming multiple pages. But there is one thing that stands out, and that's the fact that we only have 3 conversions. So we have 257 sessions, but 3 conversions, that's not a lot. That's not a healthy number. So we are going to optimize. So as it stands now, you can see this is any ad platform. This one is Facebook specifically for this example, but pretty much any social platform is going to have a similar setup with your targets that are available. So right now you can see we're targeting women in the United States aged 20 to 40. We might have some other targets attached to it, interest-based, depending on what companies they like. But right now there is no income targeting. So as part of the optimization, what we did was we added some income targeting. So, just changing a little thing like that, and you can see short time afterwards, we saw our conversions spike. So just by doing something minor like that, you can really see a change in what's going on behind the scenes. So everything still looks good, but we were able to increase those conversions because the ads are resonating a little bit more. So Facebook ad traffic increased. We were able to refine our audience. We saw now that it resonates better with the higher income audience. We increased quality traffic, and then ultimately at the end of the day, we increased conversions from our Facebook ad. So now we went over 4 examples of ways to optimize. We did a budget optimization, we did some social targeting optimization, we did a site placement, and then we also did a content and creative optimization. So now month 1 is over, so what we're going to do is we're going to pause. Internally, we usually stop for maybe a day or 2, maybe longer depending, to assess the health of the campaign, right? So we have a 3-month campaign. Let's pause it after month 1. Let's take inventory. Let's take a holistic approach to this, see really high level what's going on. Because when you do these optimizations, you can kind of, you can get a little bit too involved into it. You really need to step back at certain times and be like, okay, what is this really about? What does this look like from a bigger picture standpoint? And this is the answer to that. So these charts here, you'll notice this is the display ad platform, so this shows what's going on the front end of everything from an ad delivery standpoint. And then this is the analytics platform, once again, what's going on in the background. What is the traffic doing? So this is after 1 month. We paused, regroup internally to figure out what's going on with this. And so far, taking a big picture approach to this is pretty good information. So everything, and it's once again attributed to making those optimizations when you needed to, as opposed to waiting too long before it was too late. So some of these stats, you can see the spend, conversions. From a traffic standpoint, you can see we're delivering mostly new traffic. People are spending a lot of time on the site. They're consuming multiple pages on the site, and they're ultimately converting. Now, this would have looked much different had we have not done any of those conversions. They wouldn't have slowly climbed the way that they did. These numbers probably, who knows where these numbers could have been if we didn't make those changes on the fly. So just to touch on some other things that you might optimize. So we've been over a few. Here's some more things, depending on, once again, what your objectives are. So from a content standpoint, email marketing is huge. You really want to take a look at what's going on with your content. If something's succeeding, if it's not working out so well, why? With email, most likely it's the content, could be the subject line. So those are the things you want to look at. Conversion tracking structure. So what are you measuring? You know what I mean? Are you measuring forms? Are you measuring e-commerce? Is there any opportunities to further measure anything on your site that you're not measuring currently? Your retargeting structure, so are you targeting the visitors from your own site properly? Are you getting enough volume out of your retargeting? Ad site placements, which we went over, are your ads on the right sites? Ad copy and design, so is your ad design resonating with the audience that you're looking to hit? Your call to actions, are they strong enough? Are we seeing enough clicks out of the ads? Are we guiding people properly to what we want them to do? Landing pages, which we touched on, to make sure they're aligned with the rest of the creative. It's a consistent messaging. And then budgets and allocation. So are we spending money in the proper place? And once again, that's another positive aspect of digital marketing is you don't have to waste any money. When you have a sniper rifle effect on your advertising, you really eliminate wasteful spending. So this brings up a point. Troubleshooting and optimization are two different things. So going in and fixing a campaign is not optimizing. Fixing a campaign, so if your ads aren't clicking through to the proper place, or if your campaign flight dates are incorrect, or if you're working with AdWords or a technology partner that's doing your advertising and you don't have enough funds in your account, so your campaign stops and you don't know because you haven't logged in to check it. So fixing these things are not optimizing. This is just really troubleshooting. This is correcting errors. These are things that need to be done. So you can't just, oh, I fixed the click URL, I optimized my campaign. That's not how it works. Optimizing, on the other hand, is opportunity and strategy based. So it's seeing an opportunity, capitalizing on it, and then leveraging it to make your campaign better. So some of these things: creative direction, conversions, your specific segments, your budget and allocation, once again, your landing pages, content, all that good stuff, seeing an opportunity and then capitalizing on it. So fast forward, we've been optimizing now. We stuck with some of the same strategies we did in the first month. 3 months has passed, the campaign is over. So it's kind of a bigger picture. What now? We need to once again step back, take a look at everything from a 3-month and even larger picture view to see how we did in our first campaign for the women's line for Tillman Street. And this is when you have to ask yourself the questions: did we hit those objectives? Did we accomplish those KPIs that we set out in the beginning of the campaign? You have to answer those questions. Why were we running this campaign in the first place? Did we achieve those results? In Tillman Street case, did we develop brand awareness in the defined audience? So did we hit those women 20 to 40 with all those targets? Did we develop retail location awareness? How were our women's line e-commerce sales? And then, of course, any other successful metrics, so secondary KPIs. People sometimes get too focused on the high-level, low-hanging fruit when it comes to measuring conversions. So e-commerce is an easy one, right? But if you have an app on your site that allows you to, for instance, add bricks to a house like Glengarry does, that's something that you want to measure. You can kind of, really separate out what you want to measure to make sure that things are successful. Some of those might include email subscriptions, catalog downloads, if somebody engages with an app on your site. We have all of our questions. These all tie back to the KPIs and the objectives that we identified early on in the process. And this is what that looks like. This is a 3-month snapshot of our display ad performance. Now, this one is a little idealistic, so just for presentation purposes, you're not always going to see increases. Just like anything else, things change, things happen. There are down months. So keep in mind this is a very optimistic campaign, but you can see by optimizing it, you can get the best possible results from the campaign by doing these little things throughout the life of the campaign. You can see the impressions slowly start to climb, so that's reach, that's brand awareness. Clicks to the website slowly increased because we're optimizing for those things. Click-through rate looks healthy. Spend, and then conversion. So we were able to increase conversions by doing those things in those examples that I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, what's happening on the back end of everything in the traffic, you can obviously see the correlation between the increases in your front end stuff and your traffic. So our sessions increase month over month, a healthy majority of which, 91%, is new, so it hits that brand awareness objective. Our bounce rate is in a healthy range, so people are engaging. Same thing with the pages per session and the session duration. And then ultimately, conversions. So people are hitting the site, they're becoming customers, they're filling out forms, they're doing what you want them to do because you're appropriately optimizing everything. And this slide was intended to be a little bit wordy, simply because to show you kind of everything and some of the metrics that you should be keeping an eye on. These are really the things that are going to be the drivers of your optimizations. And as you can see, everything kind of has their own unique bucket. So email, opens, clicks, unsubscriptions, anything and everything that you can measure that means something to you, you should. Display, impressions, so are you getting enough reach? Are people clicking your ads? Where your site, where your ads being placed? Traffic, paid search, e-commerce, revenue, average cart value, conversion rate. So these are all some of the drivers of your optimizations. And of course, like I mentioned before, this is a lot, but this has to tie directly back to what you view as valuable internally. So some of these might matter to some people, some other companies might not even care about these. So it really honestly depends on your objectives and what you're trying to set out to do. So back to some of the questions, let's answer these. So did we develop brand awareness and define audience? That answer is yes. So at the end of the 3 months, we have over 2,700 sessions and 91% of which is new. Once again, that's brand awareness, that's bringing new people to our website. Did we develop retail location awareness? The answer to that is yes. So in this 3-month time frame, the campaign generated 987 sessions, 97% of which were new users, directly to our Find a Location page. So that was one of the objectives that we set out, and from this, it looks like we hit it. And then, of course, did we drive online sales? So there were 256 transactions at the end of this. We brought in over $64,000 in revenue with an average cart value of $252.12. So we hit a lot of our primary objectives. So then you have to ask yourself, what did we learn from all this? So some of the takeaways, we learned the highest performing segments. And this is critical, especially because we are launching a new line within our established brand. So we have to figure out what we learned. Highest performing segments, so where to allocate budget, what site placements worked, what didn't work, and all of these things will help you the next time, the next go around, figure out, guide your future efforts. Best performing creative, because we A/B tested, we used multiple creatives, we tracked everything, we optimized everything, we now know what resonates and what doesn't with our audience, and that's gonna guide your future creative efforts. We also have established analytic benchmarks. So now we know what's going on behind the scenes to measure up against the future. Same thing with email. We just started sending emails out for this. How did they do? And then measure that with your future efforts. And then ultimately, what all this stuff does is give you valuable business insight at the end of the day. So not only does it touch on some of the minor objectives and some of the optimizations that we made, but this can also provide valuable business insights as to what's working on your website, what's not. What does your audience actually look like? So you'd be surprised about, what you actually figure out that you didn't even set to find out by looking at these things on a regular basis. So you learn stuff about your brand, which ultimately improve things going forward. And another thing is some of the intangibles and unmeasurables. So all this stuff is great because it's measurable. You can see it, you can see all the information and all the numbers, which is awesome. But also you can't step away from business in general, right? So you want to increase things in your business and you need to take a look at that from a larger picture. Online marketing campaigns have been shown to drive offline sales, and you need to take that into consideration. There's never gonna be a way to measure that really. People aren't gonna come in and say, hey, Tillman Street, I saw your ad on Cosmo, I'm here to shop. People are gonna see it, they're gonna mess around your website, they're just gonna come in and be a customer. So when you do see increases like that, say you have a 10% increase month over month with whatever it is that you're offering, and the only difference is your online campaign, you have to attribute at least some of your business performance to that online campaign. So it's always something to keep in mind. There are things that you're not gonna be able to measure that are gonna have a positive impact on the campaign. And then ultimately, after everything's done, everything's measured, we track everything, we figure out what the next step is. We're going to be launching a spring 2016 campaign, and the process starts all over again. So I think that's it.
Thank you.